Welcome to The Deep Dive. This is where we take your topic, really immerse ourselves in the sources you shared, and pull out the key stuff, without getting lost in the weeds. Consider it your fast track to getting properly informed. Today, you, the learner, asked us specifically to, snack angles, speak English, and to really go deep on a classic, Sun Tzu's Art of War. We're aiming for a thorough look with a clear wrap-up at the end.
Exactly. And we've got some great material to work with. There's the full Project Gutenberg text, which is fantastic. Then an article from startups.com looking at it from a business angle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And the usual Wikipedia pages for background, plus a piece from the U.S. Army War College about its strategic meaning today.
It's all a good mix.
Definitely. Our mission here is to really unpack the strategic thinking in this ancient text and figure out why it's still so relevant. Right.
Okay, let's dive right in then. First off, I guess, who was this guy, Sun Tzu? And when are we talking about historically?
Well, the main accounts, mostly from Sima Qian, place him around the 6th century BC, serving a ruler who became King Hilu of Wu.
Okay.
And there's this pretty intense story about him training the king's concubines. Apparently, they weren't taking it seriously.
Oh.
So he actually executed the king's 2 favorites to, make a point about discipline and following orders.
Wow. Okay, so not someone to mess with. That certainly shows his emphasis on clear command.
Definitely underscores it.
But is the art of war we have today definitely his work from back then? It just feels so insightful for something that old.
That's a really good question. And actually, there's some debate. An old Chinese text, the Han Shu, mentions a Sun Tzu book with 82 chapters. We only have 13.
82. That's a big difference.
It is. So maybe chapters were added later, or perhaps the 13 we have are the original core. But there's evidence in the text itself that points to it being pretty old.
Like what?
Well, it talks about chariot warfare, which was big back then. It mentions land systems from that period. And Sun Tzu seems to be writing from inside the Wu state, which, stopped existing in 473 BC.
Oh, okay.
Plus, the language is archaic, and later military writers clearly borrowed from it. So most scholars feel comfortable placing it around the 5th century BC. It feels like a foundational work from that time.
Right.
We even have examples like him advising King Hilu on attacking the state of Chu.
Fascinating. It's like the text carries its own history. Okay, so let's get into the core of it. What are the absolute bedrock strategic principles he lays out?
Right. Chapter 1 kicks things off with 5 fundamental factors. These are crucial for figuring out the outcome of any conflict.
5 factors.
First is the way. Think of it as moral law, or the unity between the ruler and the people. If everyone's on board, they'll back the war effort.
Makes sense. Like morale and alignment.
Exactly. Second is heaven. That covers things like timing, weather, seasons. Third is earth, basically, understanding the terrain, distances, obstacles, safe spots, dangerous spots.
Geography matters. Got it.
Immensely. Fourth is the commander. This is about the leader's qualities. Wisdom, integrity, courage, strictness, benevolence.
A whole package.
Pretty much. And fifth is method and discipline. That's the nuts and bolts army organization, chain of command, logistics, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And then he gives 7 elements to kind of weigh up your chances against the enemy based on these factors.
So way before any fighting starts, it's all about this deep internal assessment and understanding the whole picture. Groundwork, really.
Precisely. That whole first chapter, Laying Plans, is all about careful calculation before you commit. War is serious business, vital to the state, not something to jump into.
Right.
And then waging war gets into the economics. Maintaining armies is hugely expensive, so you need swift, decisive action. Don't let it drag on, drain resources, and kill morale.
Which leads to that other key idea, right? The attack by stratagem.
Exactly. This is maybe one of the most famous parts. Winning through clever planning and exploiting weaknesses, not just brute force. Sometimes winning without fighting at all.
Winning without fighting? How does that even work?
It's about maneuvering, positioning, and psychology. Tactical Dispositions, another chapter, talks about defending yourself securely until you see a clear advantage. Don't give the enemy an opening. Be patient.
Okay, so defense first, find the opportunity.
And then weak points and strong builds on that. Attack where the enemy is undefended. Defend where they can't possibly attack you. He calls it the divine art of subtlety and secrecy.
Divine art.
Yeah, be invisible, be inaudible, make the enemy completely unsure about where you'll strike or what you're defending, keep them guessing, keep them off balance.
It really is a mental game then, isn't it? Intelligence deception. So how does actual troop movement fit in?
Well, maneuvering an army covers that. Moving big armies has advantages, but also serious dangers. He talks about using CHI and Cheng.
Ching.
Yeah, think of Cheng as the direct, straightforward attack, the main force. And CHI is the indirect, the surprise move, the flank attack, the feint. A good commander weaves them together.
The old 1-2 punch.
Kind of. And he stresses morale, the spirit of the troops, and using signals like drums and flags to keep everyone coordinated and focused.
Then there's adapting, right? You mentioned adaptability earlier.
Absolutely key. Variation in tactics hammers this home. Don't be rigid. Plans have to change based on the situation. He even lists 5 dangerous faults a general can have that lead to failure.
Ooh, what are those? Sounds like they might apply beyond generals.
They really do. Okay, so recklessness, which leads to destruction, cowardice leading to capture, a hasty temper easily provoked, being too sensitive about honor so you react foolishly to insults, and finally, being too concerned about your soldiers, which can make you hesitant and worried. You can see how those could trip up any leader, right?
Definitely. Recklessness, cowardice, temper, ego, over-attachment. Yeah, timeless flaws.
And then he gets practical again in the army on the march, thinking about terrain, crossing rivers, watching for signs from the enemy camp, and that balance again between treating soldiers well but maintaining strict discipline.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot, the history, the core ideas, battlefield tactics. But you mentioned the sources point beyond just military stuff, like that startups.com article.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting for, well, almost anyone today. The Startups article pulls out fantastic parallels for business.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, adaptability. Sun Tzu says something like, victory isn't repetitious, it adapts its form endlessly. The article connects this straight to business needing to pivot based on the market. Think about GE trying to become a digital company that's adapting on a massive scale.
Right, like a battlefield general has to react, a CEO has to react to market shifts. Makes sense.
Another one is market entry. Sun Tzu advises attacking undefended spots. The startup angle is finding those underserved needs in the market, right?
Find the gap.
Exactly. Netflix, starting with mail-order DVDs, is a classic example. Blockbuster wasn't really covering that well. Netflix saw the undefended spot and went for it.
Okay, that's a great modern parallel.
And commitment, too. Sun Tzu talks about burning boats and bridges so your army has to fight. Startups often need that same laser focus, that elimination of fallback options just to survive. Paul Graham talks about this a lot.
Burn the boats.
Yeah.
That intense focus. So planning, adapting, finding weaknesses, total commitment. These really do seem universal, whether it's war or business.
Well, espionage, culture, sports. Wikipedia mentions all sorts of applications, even pop culture, like Gordon Gekko quoting it in Wall Street.
Yeah.
The core ideas about strategy and human behavior just translate incredibly well.
Okay, so let's pivot slightly. What about that Army War College perspective? How does the art of war play into modern geopolitics?
Well, that article brings up a really interesting point about strategy and counter-strategy on a global scale.
How so?
It suggests that if, say, the U.S. or the West pursues a strategy of revolutionary change, like spreading capitalism and certain global norms, then other major powers, maybe like China or Russia, might respond with strategies of containment and rollback. But crucially, they might try to do this without direct military conflict.
Following Sun Tzu's idea of winning without fighting.
Precisely. Attacking the strategy of the opponent rather than their armies. Undermining it, exploiting perceived weaknesses or contradictions in that strategy, maybe by appealing to more traditional elements globally who are wary of rapid change.
So it becomes a kind of strategic jujitsu on the world stage, using the opponent's momentum against them.
That's a good way to put it. It's about avoiding those costly, prolonged, direct confrontations that Sun Tzu warned against, and instead focusing on subtly shifting the strategic landscape. It's a thought-provoking, maybe slightly unsettling lens on current events.
It's definitely unsettling. It really highlights how relevant this ancient thinking still is. Okay, so wrapping this up, what are the big takeaways for you, our learner?
I think the absolute core is the timelessness of strategic thinking itself. Planning is essential, yes, but so is adaptability. Understanding your opponent, their strengths, weaknesses, motivations is critical.
Know yourself, know your enemy.
Exactly. And exploiting those weaknesses, often subtly. Plus, that constant theme of trying to achieve your aims with the minimum possible conflict and cost, that seems incredibly relevant today.
It really does. It feels like the art of war isn't just a military manual or even just a business guide. It's almost a philosophy of navigating any competitive or challenging situation.
I think that's fair to say. It encourages you to look at challenges from multiple angles, to think several steps ahead, and to understand the deeper dynamics at play.
So as we finish this deep dive, here's a final thought for you to ponder. How could these principles, planning, adapting, understanding weaknesses, minimizing conflict, apply to your own challenges? Maybe in your work, your studies, even personal goals.
Yeah, revisiting the text or just thinking about these ideas in your own context might unlock some really valuable insights. It's a work that definitely keeps on giving, even after, what, 2,500 years.
Amazing stuff. Definitely worth the deep dive.